You're listening to Zap Night, a video game review podcast, with your hosts, Danny and Kaylie. Hello, and welcome to episode 5 for Zap Night. I'm your host, Danny.
And I'm your co-host, Kaylie.
And today we are recording Final Fantasy 1. So, what...
I hate this game. I hate this game, Danny. This was the worst game I've ever played. I'm not gonna lie. I hated this game.
But what version did you end up playing?
I played the Origins version. The, PlayStation remake. I think it was PlayStation. Yeah. It came with Final Fantasy 1 and 2.
Okay, I played the NES, the original NES version.
Bless your heart.
And it was horrible. It was not fun. Very difficult. This game originally was released in 1987 in Japan. Yeah, that's my birth year, actually. So this game is as old as me.
Well, that's funny because it, oh no, I thought it was... No, I thought it was released in America, my birth year, but it's off by one.
1990 in North America. So it was a little bit later coming here, but still, 1987 is, getting up there in age. Almost 30 years now. Did you by chance write down what your finish time was?
I did. Let me find it really quick. I forgot to...
My finish time was 37 hours and 28 minutes.
Jeez, my time was not that.
Yeah, well, your game was a lot easier than mine.
I finished at 16 hours and 35 minutes.
Jeez.
What level did you finish at?
I think it was 25.
My guys were all 31.
No, you know what? I think I did make it to 30. I think my guys were at 30 when I finished. Well, but I spent a lot of time trying to actually make it to level 30.
Took them 30 hours just to get to level 30. An hour a level.
It literally, it averaged out to about an hour per level.
That's insane.
So let's start off with the story. The story is basically about the 4 warriors of light, and they all carry these 4 orbs, and they don't really delve into a whole lot of explanation on where they came from. It's just like there's these warriors of light who appeared one day after years of traveling or something like that.
Well, they eventually tell you later on that there's these legends and prophecies of the 4 warriors of light.
Yeah, but it still doesn't go into any detail on where they came from.
Where did they get the orbs? Were they just born with them?
They just had them. When you first start off the game, you're kind of just dropped in front of this town, and I think that's really to steer you into going into the town. And you go in, and you end up talking to a king, and he tells you that, first off, he kind of gives you a little insight onto you have to light up the orbs. And I think did your version call them orbs, or did they call them crystals?
They called them crystals.
Yeah, in my game they were called orbs, but, the first game of the series, they didn't really have the crystal situation.
Did yours, because mine had a complete, overlay revamp. Did yours show the crystals in the menu?
It did, but they were just like little balls.
That's so strange. Huh.
Yep. They were just like these little balls. So after you talk to the king, you find out that the princess has been kidnapped by an evil knight called Garland. You hunt down Garland and you fight him and save the princess. After you save the princess, the king kind of opens up the worlds for you to explore by building a bridge, and then also tasks you with actually going and hunting down how to reactivate the crystals. And as you walk around, you are collecting items.
I'd like to add, which we can talk about later, I guess. I just thought it was very interesting. Final Fantasy IX is my favorite game, and I had never played Final Fantasy. So playing through this, you fight a lot of the monsters that you experience in that, and it had a lot of references to Final Fantasy I that I never knew.
Yeah, actually, a lot of the games pulled a lot of references from... Final Fantasy I really set the tone for the whole series. Which makes it fun to play this game if it wasn't so dang hard. Oh. So anyway, the group... You eventually go through and defeat 4 fiends, activating the 4 crystals. And the 4 crystals are representative to the elements, so earth, wind, fire, and water. After you activate the crystals, you eventually figure out that Garland is the one who is responsible for the entire crystal problem that they're having.
You know, what's funny about that, by the time we reached the end of the game, I had completely forgotten what had happened with Garland.
Yeah, you know, I kind of did too.
Right, he exists. That's the whole point.
I tried to play this game as much as I could without the guide, but...
Oh, I needed the guide.
But when I got to the end, I'm like, well, what do I do? Like, what? It doesn't... After you activate the last crystal, it doesn't really give you any information on where you're supposed to go. You just have to wander around until you end up in that castle again. So you go back to the castle where you first fought Garland, and there is a time portal to send you back 2,000 years. And I didn't really get this whole concept the first time around until, you know, playing it a second time. Because I've played all 1 through 13 previously, so now I'm playing all these over again. So this is the second time that I've played Final Fantasy 1. And I didn't really understand that when you went back in time, you're fighting Garland as, like, this ultimate being called Chaos.
Right.
And what he's done is he's created this time loop.
He sends himself into the past.
Yeah, he sends himself into the past.
And sends the fiends to the future, no?
Yeah, and then the fiends send him back into the past again, creating this time loop.
And in theory, he's killing you so that he can just continuously live in this loop. So by
killing Garland, or by killing now Chaos, you're ending that time loop. The crystals return to its normal state. The problem with this whole thing is, without Garland, there is no legend of the 4 Warriors of Light. There is no prophecy. So therefore, there's no memory of your whole adventure. It just is...
Your journey is nothing more than a legend.
Yes.
Which is how I feel at work sometimes.
So, you know, it kind of ends with this kind of bleak feeling of, well, I did all that for nothing. But no, story-wise, it's kind of blah. There's not much there. I have a question
here. Do you think that Squaresoft... Was it
just Square. No, it was just Square.
Square at the time. Do you think they did this so when they visited Final Fantasy II, that they could just start a new story over again with that in mind? Do you think that this Final Fantasy II coincides with Final Fantasy I?
It's possible, but I don't think that they originally planned that from the beginning. I think that they really planned this game to be just a one-off sort of deal.
I see.
It just turned out that it was this good game that they made a second one of.
So, what'd you think of this story?
Again, there was very little story, but I didn't dock it as a bad thing because there was a storyline, which was something brand new, you know, in the 80s. There really wasn't storyline to any video game, so to have some sort of storyline outside of the main pamphlet really was a benchmark in gaming history.
The story was the only thing that really kept me going with this, but besides it being bland, I didn't like how you had to figure out what to do next by just talking to the townsfolk. I felt like it just, and I get it was, you know, back then, it just, I did dock it quite a bit. I was not very happy with this game when I scored it, but I don't know, I just wanted a little bit more, a little bit of something, like, just even little stuff they didn't really explain, and...
I get where you're coming from, and I agree. However, I miss that in the current games, the current Final Fantasies. I miss getting lost. You know what I mean? I would be all for getting lost if I didn't take every 2 steps to fight a new monster. Yeah, I know. Well, that comes back into gameplay. But, I mean, as the storyline goes, having to hunt down characters and have them tell you where you're supposed to go.
I get
to me,
saying.
It's not a bad thing. It makes it difficult, which, again, I don't think is a bad thing. I think that difficulty needs to be in these games.
I agree with you and I disagree with you. I think that if you want to learn more about stuff, because they explained more than what they absolutely needed to if you talk to the villagers. but you also need to talk to the villagers to figure out where to go next. And sometimes they didn't explain very well at all.
No.
And I want more of that. And I feel like that they kind of failed in that department. It really, I mean, they had to plop you right in front of the city to tell you where to go. Like, they couldn't have had a better intro for that. Even the intro was kind of, I don't know if you had an intro, but my intro was just text on a screen.
Yeah, that was the same that I got too.
I don't know.
It was, again, the first in the series. They didn't have a whole lot of media to be able to use for a storytelling purpose.
I'm just so angry with this game. I might just be biased. I don't know.
What score did you give it for story?
I gave it a 3 out of 10.
Jeez, a 3? Wow.
I know.
I gave it a
I'm
6.
very bitter.
What 7 points are you taking it off for?
I want more. Like, the characters. We know nothing about these characters.
That's very true.
And, I mean, I guess they're thinking, like, it's you, but there's 4 people. Like, there's nothing. And there's very little about the characters you are introduced to, like the kings, the princess, even Garland. There's really not much about Garland. Like, there's nothing.
But there's more about Garland than there is about a lot of the other characters.
Which is sad, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the elf prince. Like, he's just the elf prince.
Yes.
And that's it. He's asleep, you wake him up, and that's it. He's just like, thanks. Here's a key to some magic... some magic treasure that you can collect, and that's it.
I guess I'm not being fair, because I did kind of like the doing the small errands, like rescuing the fairy to release her so you can get an item to proceed with your next task. But at least that one particular task, I didn't like having to do errands in different dungeons, but I hate this game. This game sucks.
Well, I have to say, this game, as difficult as it was, and as not so great, kind of crappy as it may have been, it really set a bar for Final Fantasy the series.
Yeah.
Because from what I remember of Final Fantasy II, it's significantly better, and they take advantage of everything not that we can play the NES version, but I really, from what I've played of the second one, it really takes full advantage of doing some sort of storyline and incorporating a lot of different magic systems. So, this game really just set a bar. And it may be very low, but it was brand new. This was a new kind of idea that was coming out from, in Nintendo time. So let's move on to graphics.
So this one's going to be hard because I had the revamped version and you did not.
Well, being that I played the original Nintendo version, I really based my scoring off of what other kind of games were out there at the time. And I actually did a bit of research looking at graphics for other games that were made in 1987. And at the time, especially for console games, they reused a lot of graphics, they reused a lot of different sprites for your individual players. At the time, this was amazing. This was, every monster had a different look. Now, they were kind of lazy on some of them, where all they did was change the color, which I found kind of ridiculous. But if you're trying to save on memory, that's the way to go. Again, basing my score off of the 1987 look of overall games, it wasn't bad for a console game. However, there was a lot of computer games at the time that looked really good. So, I mean, again, 1987 good, but still not too bad for a game at that time.
So what did you give it?
I ended up giving it an 8 out of 10.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
I gave it a 4.5.
Again, I'm basing my score off of for the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely could have been better, but I really kind of think that they pushed it about as far as they could for a Nintendo game. I thought that the sprites in the port of it, because I also have the PSP port that I played last time, and that's the game that I think that's the same version that you played, and it's it looks so nice, and they really cleaned it up without...
See, that's kind of why I was sticking around the neutral area, because I really wasn't sure, because we're playing the same game, just the revamp versus, and I just kind of want to go neutral, but I'm agreeing with you. I think the palette swap is, and I thought that the airship being how you traveled, it was kind of weird. Did you know, like, do you have anything to add to that? How you traveled in the airship? How your view of the world was?
It didn't change at all for me.
No,
there was no change.
Mine looked a little strange. I would have liked to have been just traveling on a regular ship.
Yeah, in my game, the world didn't change at all. You got in the airship like floated up maybe 20 pixels. And you had a shadow that was 20 pixels lower. So it gave you that look like you were flying, but nothing else really changed.
Mine, it tried to change the dimension a little bit, but everything looked so flat.
Oh, so
it was very strange.
It tilted the world.
The perspective was very different.
They did that again in Final Fantasy VI. You'll see, and I think maybe even in Final Fantasy V, but I could be wrong. But Final Fantasy VI for sure, where they kind of tilted this, the world map tilts to where you can see the sky, but everything is just super flat, so it looks weird.
And I didn't. I mean, it was okay. It was different, I guess, but it was. It wasn't necessary. Difficult. It just was okay. They put so much effort into some of these enemies, and then they just kind of were like, meh, in the dungeons.
I had a little bit of problem actually telling what some of the enemies were.
Yeah, I did too.
There was one enemy called, I think it was Mage, I think it was the Mage. And he was just like this blob. I couldn't... I have no idea what he's supposed to look like.
That's okay. I think I fought one of Bowser's ancestors. I had no idea what he was. And it was like, do I need my glasses, or if I just really can't understand what I'm looking at?
I had that a lot. But again, Nintendo graphics, I cut it some slack. But
they did amazing on the bosses.
Yeah, the bosses looked really good. Bosses were also 4 times bigger than the average kind of monster. But that was my only big complaint, was you couldn't really see what the sprites were, and they were kind of lazy on just doing a palette swap. What did you think about when you progress so far in the game, your characters actually transform into a beefier character? What did you think about how they looked?
That. Oh, mine looked okay.
Mine looked super weird. It was mine went from regular Final Fantasy looking sprites to these really strange beefy characters with these itty bitty heads. They all looked like they were on steroids. It was really weird.
Mine just looked like they changed clothes. Except my white mage. My white mage just took off her hood.
It was like that in mine too. But it was everybody got these big bodies and these itty bitty little heads, and they just looked weird.
Speaking of your characters, what did you choose? Who did you choose?
Oh, let's see. I had Zap, who was a warrior, Knight, who was a black mage. I had Kay, who was a white mage, and then Dan, who was a thief. Which he actually turns into a ninja later, which played pretty good.
I thought the thief was the worst decision I had made. Did they steal at some point? Because I didn't see. What was the point?
In calling him a thief? I don't know. I think it's just so that you can be a ninja later. Because once he turned into a ninja, I felt like he was actually used,ful.
He was.
But I may as well have just had 2 warriors. It would have made so much more sense.
That's how I felt too. And I chose the same. I had Zap, Knight, Dan, and Kay. And Zap was my knight. Yeah. Knight was my thief. Kay was my white mage. And Dan was my red mage. I chose a red mage. And I chose the red mage because I also wanted one that would be doing attacks. So I had no black mage, and I had a thief. I felt like I had the worst setup. I had just set myself up for failure. And Knight, I think it was Knight, that's my thief. He died all the time. He was my useless... And what's funny about that is that at one point in the game, he was the only one left, and I had gone through this dungeon, so I'm like struggling to get back to town with using my weakest character.
I had that a couple times. Poor Kaylie. She died so many times. It got to the point where she was a full level behind everyone else. So it was like all my characters were leveling up except for Kaylie. And then it was so bad that I actually ended up making a pixel art of a dead white mage that I'm going to end up posting on our YouTube channel sometime this week of me building that because it's fun. But, yeah.
My white mage, I think she only died, like, I could probably count on my one hand.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
She actually, in the end, with the exception of my knight... she had the highest HP.
Yeah, I think I had that. Well, no, I think my thief had pretty high HP too.
My thief was my lowest one.
My mage definitely had the highest HP. Or not my mage. My black mage had the lowest HP, actually. And it was sad too. Like, I was playing with him and he would just like, all my characters were like at level, whatever level they were at, but their HP was like at 200, 300, and he was like a whole 100 HP lower than everyone else.
Yeah.
But he didn't die as much as Kaylie did. I don't know if it was just where I kept putting her in my party that they tend to pick like the second person in my party more often to kill.
Because that's where I kept my Steve. I don't know. It was nice, I have to say, after they whatever
beefed up
after they turned Super Saiyan. It was pretty nice because and they could equip more weapons and stuff. So yeah, that was pretty nice. But
yeah. So gameplay, which is what we're obviously talking about. What did you give it for gameplay?
I gave it a 3.
Really?
I am angry with this. I mean, my husband was joking throughout the game because he would hear every 2 steps, and I would. Yeah. I'd be like, freaking, every time I take 2 freaking steps, he just was bust out laughing.
I had that same problem too, but I gave it a 6 out of 10.
Oh my gosh, how could you give it a 6?
Just 5 because even? It's Final Fantasy. I didn't want to kill it.
Oh my gosh, I wanted this game to just burst into flames, which thankfully it didn't because it was on my PS3.
So here's some of the points that I gave it for good. I liked that the gameplay was challenging, and it was very challenging. I think that the newer games are not challenging enough. I think that the newer games, you have to have a level of strategy, where the older games, it was just kind of a pure luck sort of challenging. I liked that it kind of set the tone for all the whole Final Fantasy series with the menus and the weapon choices and the item hunting, where you got to go around and fetch stuff. And then also all the monster designs, they really, kept up with monster designs. But I think that was probably the best part about it, was really seeing, all these monsters from the games that, I've been playing, and seeing these old sprites, the original sprites of this game was really neat. I also liked that it had a saving system, that I didn't have to punch in a password every single time I wanted to play.
Password?
It didn't have a password. That's what I'm saying.
What are you talking about?
Well, like, you know how some Nintendo games you would play and you would, instead of saving, it would just like give you a password that you would have to type in the password to continue playing where you left off. Metroid had a system like that.
The nice thing about my version, which I don't think you had, is I had a soft save.
Yeah, no, I didn't have anything like that.
And that was the only thing. If I did not have that, Danny, I would not have beaten this game. I'm honestly, and I saved a lot.
Every time that I wanted to do anything, I had to save it.
I didn't like that you couldn't save in dungeons.
Yeah, I couldn't save in the dungeon.
Something.
If I died in the middle of a dungeon, I had to start all over again. And the only thing that saved me from a lot of walking was that you could save it with a tent. And the tents were only like 75 gil, so it really wasn't so bad. So they didn't call it gil in my game.
What did they call it?
It was a money symbol. It wasn't anything.
I liked how, for me anyway, we had tents, sleeping bags, and cottages. We had and they had like little sprites for them all too.
We had tents, cottages, and houses. And what's funny is if you were to use one of those inside of a dungeon, it would say...
It's not the time and place for that.
No, it would say, there's not enough room in here for that. Try somewhere else. Almost like you could go somewhere in the dungeon and save, except you couldn't. So I think it was just trying to tell you can't do that in a dungeon. You'd have to go outside, but it didn't say that.
Misleading. Yeah,
it really was. But otherwise, the final boss was pretty awesome and very satisfying.
Yeah.
The normal bosses, when you killed them, they just kind of died just like a normal monster. There was no music change or anything. But the final boss, there was no music change for the final boss either for me. But he
melted, didn't he?
No, he did the rumbly, shaky fade thing that they do in the current games, where it's, the screen rumbles and then the guy slowly granulates away.
I thought mine sank. I don't know. I'll have to... as soon as I beat him, I was like, yes! I'm done with this stupid game! Yes!
I kind of felt the same way. My last playthrough that I did, which I streamed the whole thing, my last playthrough, I wasn't expecting to actually beat it that day. I fully expected to go into the final dungeon, roam around for a while, and then back out, save it, and then quickly get through it to fight the final boss. And it was I made it to the final boss, and I thought, I'm not gonna beat him. There's no way I'm gonna beat him. My magic isn't all the way up. I'm some of my health isn't all that great. So it's I healed up as much as I could, and I went into the fight, and I fully just expected to die and start over and then beat him. But no, I beat him first try.
Yeah, I have to say, all of the bosses, I never had to fight a boss twice. I had to fight a lot of enemies a couple times because they would lay some sucker punches and all that, but I never had a problem with the bosses.
Yeah, the bosses were actually significantly easier than some of the enemies.
I was expecting a long fight or something. No, they were never that long.
I have to say, though, the final boss kind of ticked me off when he did a full cure.
See, I never had mine cured.
And he
never cured once for me.
I'm dude, I can't have full cure, but you can have full cure? What? That's not fair. But I still beat him, and I think I beat him because I was doing something. I don't remember now what it was.
I kept using the giant gauntlets that would increase your attack power, and I gotten the two strongest weapons for my knight and my fighter and my thief, ninja, whatever he was, and they were laying some serious damage.
I had no idea that I could even use items until much later in the game. I got the healing staff and a couple other healing items, and I'm just oh
my gosh.
I used it on accident once, and it blew my mind. I'm like, what? I didn't know you could do this. And then I had to test out everything to see if anything did other moves. And I think the wizard staff did fire on all enemies or something like that. It did a fire 2 sort of thing. But that was about it.
That's one of the things it was nice having the healing weapons and stuff, but they only casted 2-digit healing towards you. So I would have to find a single enemy that would only do 1 damage, and I'd have to sit there for a half hour trying to heal myself.
Yeah, I had the same problem. I think my best bet was to use healing items if I could kill all but one enemy.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of all but one enemy, I hated that you would get into these fights where you were fighting 9 of the same enemy.
Yes.
And it would happen over and over and over and over again.
Because, 9 against 4 is a fair fight.
Well, I don't care about fairness. It's all about speed.
Yes.
And
the speed didn't seem very consistent anyway. With your different characters. One character would attack before the other, and then another battle, it would be the other way around, and I don't know. You'd have to try and just...
I'm sure it had to do with your speed stats.
If you were running, if you're running from a battle, you'd have to sit there and be attacked like 50 times before you could successfully...
Yeah, I had that problem too.
And even then, sometimes you couldn't run away, and that was very frustrating.
So, okay, let's talk about speed real quick, at least for battle speed. Because for you, it's a very, very, very different story than for me. Which is where my 1 level per hour comes into play. Okay, so first off, for a normal fight, for me, I had to select each character's attack, and I had to very specifically choose who they were going to attack. Otherwise,
just roll over.
Yeah, it wouldn't roll into the next monster. So if I had all my characters fight Monster A, if Monster A died with the first hit, the rest of my guys would keep fighting that empty space. And it would just be like, oh, it's ineffective because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Instead of moving on.
They definitely fixed that, but they didn't fix it for when I was healing. So if someone died, they wouldn't just heal my next character.
Which I think they rolled that out into the other Final Fantasy games too. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like if
I waste a high-level cure spell on someone who's dead. It's a little frustrating. At least I could heal someone else that could use it.
Okay, so on top of that, the messages were very slow. Like, I had to sit and watch each message scroll by. I actually had somebody in the chat room while I was streaming say, the messaging is so slow, speed it up, a couple notches. And I'm like, unfortunately, on the Nintendo, I'm very limited to my options for, text. I think, no, there was like nothing. There was no menu options whatsoever.
That's strange.
So, I mean, there was no option to skip the messages. If my guys leveled up, it took like a minute for the messages to go through on each item that leveled up and what the stat change was, and every battle took forever, and I tried so hard to push through it, and it was very difficult. So yeah, other than the slow battles, it's really just the really tough regular enemies, as opposed to the super easy bosses, which I find really weird, that I can go into a dungeon and die 7 times on, enemies that can one-hit kill me, and then go and fight a boss and kill him in like 30 seconds. It's weird.
Speaking of dying, what did you think about, before you could get actually life, what did you think about how you revived your characters?
Oh yeah, that's weird. It was so weird.
I thought it was cute at first, but then it was kind of just like annoying, because I couldn't just go to an inn, and revive, heal, and all that stuff. You had to go donate money to be revived, and then you could go donate more money to the inn and be healed and saved.
Were they churches in your game?
I don't think they said specifically that they were, but they definitely looked like churches.
They were not specifically churches in my game, but it looked like because I booted up the PSP version too.
Yeah. Because
I almost switched over to the PSP version. But the PSP version looked like they were exactly churches. Where in the NES version, I think it was edited out to be just like a healing center, because the icon above the door was a little heart. And I'm pretty sure I remember it being like a cross in the PSP
I don't
version.
remember there being any. Like, I always thought that you just found the thing that looked like a church, and that's just.
And when I walked in on the PSP version, when you walk in, there's like little pews, and then you walk up to the front, and the guy's like, oh, do you want to heal your guys, or do you want to bring your guys back to life, or whatever?
I thought that it looked like, it reminded me of the cathedral in Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, I thought about that too. Now, the NES version was not like that. The NES version, you walked in, and it was just a black screen. There was a dude sitting there, and he's just like, hey, do you want to bring so-and-so back to life? And you're like, yeah. And he's like, okay, that'll be $50. If
only life worked like that.
Would you like to be revived today? No, I'm just gonna stay dead.
It's I guess it kind of coincides with, like, there's a lot of gravestones and stuff throughout the towns that you see, which makes sense. I mean, People,
well, if you're not
die.
out there protecting the town by killing enemies and getting money, then I guess
don't get revived.
If you die, you die. That's all there is to it. You don't have a choice.
I don't know. I thought it was kind of cute that they were little churches. It didn't need to be anything. It didn't need to be a big deal.
It kind of makes sense. I thought it was funny that it seemed edited out in my version, in the Nintendo version of it. But otherwise, I mean...
What did you, speaking of just doing this little offhand thing, what did you think about saving? Like, were you only allowed to save when you were at an inn, or you used like a tent or a cottage or whatever it was?
Yeah, that was the only options I had.
Yeah, I did not. I would have been okay with the inn thing if they would have also let you saved on the world map. But they wouldn't even let you do that. You had to use a cottage, and they weren't...
Yeah.
After a while, like, the money situation gets better. It's really terrible at the beginning, at least for me.
Yeah, it was for me too.
You couldn't just splurge on a tent or something. You had to come across it, or you had to be rich.
The tents were pretty easy because they were cheap.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't quite as cheap as staying at the inn at the first town, which I did a lot. I made a lot of trips to the first town just because it was so cheap to stay there. It was like a Motel 6. But or is it 8? Motel
I don't know.
Whatever.
Motel. We'll do 1 for Final Fantasy.
Motel 1, but it was only like 30, I think, to save there. But if
the price went up after a while, though.
Not in my game. In my game, they were fixed per location.
And they were fixed per location. I could have swore that one went. I could be completely wrong, but I felt like, but I thought for me, at the very beginning, like, money was like a serious issue.
It was. You had to really pay attention.
Saving was a big deal.
To me, healing, I had to continuously go back and heal. I'd say the first quarter of my game was very difficult.
Yeah.
It was difficult to stay alive. It was difficult to level up.
Yourself.
It was so difficult. And there was a few points in the game where I was so ticked off that I about just like quit and moved to the PSP version. Just because the PSP version, I played maybe 45 minutes of the PSP version and I caught up to where I was in my Nintendo version that I had spent like 6 hours on. So, I mean, the time difference is dramatic.
Well,
I mean, just the limitation. I don't know if it's the limitations of the Nintendo or just how they program this game to be slow, but you couldn't skip anything.
I don't know what it is necessarily they changed, but I have to say that after I got so high of a level, I spent probably the last 3 dungeons running from all the enemies and just plowing through and fighting the boss. Like, I fought a couple here and there, but I barely fought anyone, and I made it through okay.
That was how I practically went through this entire game. When I got to a dungeon, I would fight all the enemies in the dungeon as I look for treasure.
Yeah.
And then by the time I found once I found most of the treasure, and I had made it through most of the dungeon, I would exit out of the dungeon, whether it be with the exit spell if I had it, or just by running out of the dungeon because I'm about to die, and then saving, and then going through the dungeon again quickly to get to the boss. So my theory was, if I am about dead, I leave the dungeon, go back through it, and run from every enemy, and then I make it to the boss, kill the boss, and then leave again. But the best thing about the dungeons were that once you fought the boss, you could teleport out from the boss's like throne or whatever it was.
Yeah, that was pretty nice.
But that was the only thing that helped out. And you had to be like, I think it wasn't until after you went Super Saiyan that you could actually use the exit spell.
Yes.
So I couldn't actually... my characters couldn't even learn the spell until after they had, leveled up.
Over halfway through the game.
Yeah, it was very annoying. But once I got that exit spell, it saved so much, because I didn't have to worry about dying in the dungeon anymore. It was like, my focus was keep the white mage alive. Keep the white mage alive at all costs, and if you have to use the exit spell, use the exit spell. And that was it. That was my game from, like, the Bahamut point on. Which, by the way, what did you think of Bahamut being just a regular character?
I mean, it was kind of cool. It was a little strange because I didn't know about it, obviously, but I had gone to one of the towns before I went there, and there was just this dragon walking around. I was like,
I had the same thing too,
okay.
and he kind of talked to me about his town or something. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, well, clearly I have to figure out what he's talking about. And then you go into this hole, and there's these dragons running around, and it's like, oh, crap, am I going to have to fight all these dragons? And then, nope, you don't. They just talk to you. It's a town. I thought,
well, they were talking about testing your proof of your courage or something like that. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, that's it.
But I thought that would entitle just a boss battle. Oh, no, you just had to fetch, I think it was like a rat tail.
Yeah.
Which was another little thing from 9 that was a little nod to this game.
I thought it was funny that whole dungeon area was completely optional. Like, I had no idea that I needed to do that. I just kind of stumbled upon it, and then...
It was free of enemies. It was so nice.
It wasn't free of enemies for me.
Really?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm pretty sure it had enemies in it. Yeah, actually, it had...
You poor soul.
It had zombies, zombie dragons, and, like, poison enemies. Yeah.
That's nice.
What's nice is that I could use harm, which I think is maybe holy in your game.
Yeah.
Or demi, maybe.
The
white mage. The white mage that can...
We had holy, and there was, like, Devi, I think it was, or Dia.
Dia, yeah.
That's what it was called.
In mine, it was harm. Harm 1, 2, 3, 4.
Which is kind of funny. It's like a holy type, I don't know.
It really was like holy. It's just, I think that...
You actually have holy in the game. You have holy and flare, at least for me. It was like the last few you learn.
Nope. I had harm.
Huh.
And my black mage, his final moves was XXXX.
Oh.
I don't remember what the other one was. But
that's not about it.
Warp, maybe?
Oh.
Or teleport, or no. It was something different. But they were called something weird, and I don't know why they called it that. Like XXXX. It didn't do anything. Like, I tried using it a couple times, and it just didn't do anything.
Speaking of things,
I think I did have flare, though, now that I think about it.
You had lent me your guide. Well, your guide, apparently there's another version, I didn't know this, but there's another version out there of this game. And in that game, you get to have ethers. And really? It references ethers, and I kept looking at them like, I didn't know we even had those in this game. That's cool. And I go to the chest, and it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's odd, okay. And of course, it would have been amazing if I had an ether in this game. But then, one of the dungeons I went through didn't have like one of the level maps listed in it, so I went through a door or a staircase, and like I couldn't figure out where I was because it wasn't like labeled. And like a lot of the stuff on there, like some of the weapons were labeled differently. They referenced the magic as like Thunder and Thundera and Thundaga and all that stuff, and they obviously called it like Bolt 1, 2, and 3 in mine. In mine, they called it Light 1, Light 2, Light 3, Fire 1, 2, 3, Ice 1, 2, 3. But the version that I gave you the guide for was the PSP version, and they ported this game so many times. They made a lot of changes. There's the Nintendo version, there is the PS1 version, there is the PSP version, which is the 20th anniversary edition, and there is you got it listed here, the PS1, the Game Boy Advance, PSP, the iOS, Android, and PSN.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of versions of this game.
It's crazy.
And I think they changed things up a little bit in each one to make it a little bit better, tweak it. Well, they did a good job for the PSP then, because I did not have that luxury. Yeah, I remember playing the PSP version and really liking it. So when I played it this time around, I was really disappointed that it was so difficult, and I couldn't believe it. They at one point, they were like, yeah, so you might, if you have the money, you might want to spend it in buying 99 ethers. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Like, where can I even buy those? And I looked it up, and I'm like, wait a minute.
The only thing that saved my life was, one, having life.
Yeah.
Which was really nice. And using the house. Because the house would replenish my MP.
Yes, and that was
and the tent or the cabin did not. So I would exit out of a dungeon, use a house, which the house was like $3,000, which was kind of insane for a lot of the stuff, but it didn't really matter. By that point of the game where I had exit, money wasn't a problem.
Right.
I just
Which
did
I thought
what I
was
wanted.
so funny that they put Gil in the treasure chests on the last part of the game.
I thought that too. Like the last dungeon, I was getting a whole bunch of like money, and I'm like, why? What am I going to use this for?
I guess if you decide to go back out and like do it, because you unlocked these like extra bonus dungeons, which I didn't do.
They didn't have them in my game.
Oh, well then I have no idea.
If they did, it wasn't something that was announced. It was just I didn't have anything.
I guess
I pretty much went to every point in the map.
I see.
There was no any other extra places to go. By the time I hit the final dungeon, I was
then it
done.
could be that was the PSP.
Oh yeah, I'm
version
sure
too,
it was a port version where they added extra dungeons, which is nice. I mean, for players who
I wouldn't have done it.
it's not on my agenda. I just want. By the time I got that far in the game, I just wanted it to be over.
Oh, Danny, I hated this game so much.
I did too. The only reason why I stuck with the Nintendo version was because I have so much respect for this game and the series that I wanted to give the original game its proper respect. I wanted to just straight up play it for what it was intended to be played as.
Crap.
And while it was so difficult and I cussed this thing out several times, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed playing it. I enjoyed the nostalgia of holding the original NES controller and playing it on an original NES console made it worth the struggle.
So I got one last question for you. Were you able to hit a button to make your guys run?
No.
Oh. Well, they didn't mind.
There was no running in my game.
They allowed you to speed up, but when you were doing that, everyone else was also speeding up. And I cannot tell you how annoying it is to have a villager blocking your path.
Oh, yeah. I had that too. A lot of times I was just like, move. That and bats.
Yeah, the bats
There was a couple
annoying.
dungeons where there was bats, and they were just like flying everywhere and in my way. And there was a lot of times where the bats were actually... Or there was like a small, like 1 pixel hallway where you could only go through that one spot.
So you have to wait.
And there was a bat like standing there. And all you could do was just wait for the bat to hopefully move out of your way so that you can progress. But yeah, that was difficult. So let's move on to music. What did you think of the music of this game? Oh, did we actually talk about what points we gave the...
I think so.
Yeah, we did.
I gave it a lousy 3.
Yeah, I gave it a 6. That's right.
I gave music a 5 because I felt kind of indifferent. It was nice. It was Final Fantasy. It really was what started everything. It wasn't bad, I thought, especially for what it was. For when it was.
I wasn't nearly as mean. I went with a 9.
Oh, wow. You thought I was mean? I thought I was being
I guess
generous.
when he gave the gameplay a 3. Well,
you should see what I gave the game.
I really enjoyed the music. I did find it a little bit repetitive, and I think the repetitiveness of this music really was coincided with the fact that when you changed rooms, or if you went to the menu screen, or if you got into a fight, the song would start over again when you got back.
Oh, really?
So if you were
I had that. I had that.
There was a couple dungeons where you were like going through a lot of stairs consecutively, where you were like a stair, a stair, a stair, a stair, a stair. When you did that, every time you hit a stairs, the dungeon music would start over again. So it was like you would hear like 3 notes and then it would start over, and then those 3 notes again and it would start over.
I think that might have been just for yours.
Oh, I'm sure.
I don't think I had that.
And that was super annoying. But that was really the worst part. I was kind of bummed that there wasn't any boss music that was different from the regular enemy music.
Oh, I think I did. I think I had different boss music.
You might have. They might have changed it in the ports.
Changed a lot of stuff.
But I enjoyed the music. It was very, as it should be, Final Fantasy.
Yeah. That's what started it all.
Yeah, I mean, you can really tell that they pulled a lot of references from this game and pushed it out to the rest of the games.
Do you know who made the music for this one?
It was Nobu.
Was it?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Yep, Nobu Uematsu. He's the man. Yeah, he actually said the intro Final Fantasy theme, that he made that in like 5 minutes or something like that. Like he made that song super fast. He's actually embarrassed of that song because he just kind of whipped it out and it turned out to be this big thing, That's what the game is known for.
What was your favorite song, do you know? I liked I can't pronounce the name. Montoya's cave or whatever. The witch that you need to find her.
Oh yeah, that music was kind of neat. I really like the Wind Castle music. It may be a little bit different between our versions, but as I remember that music was really just, it was kind of spacey and just neat. I actually like that dungeon a lot. I didn't like that dungeon in particular, the wind one. You had to go through the tower to get to it, and going through the tower sucked, but then you got to the actual castle, and that was just, it was a neat area. It was there was a lot of like stars in the background, and it was cool.
I liked the underwater, the mermaid place, whatever it was.
Oh yeah, I kind of remember that. I remember running into the mermaids and thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to have to fight the mermaids? But no, you don't.
Well, at one level, I didn't even have encounters, like where all the mermaids were.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I didn't have any encounters in that room either. I was like,
when's the last time I had an encounter?
Yeah, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I've actually heard this song all the way through.
Oh, so what did you give the overall?
Overall, I gave it a 7 out of 10. While it's a great game, it definitely could have been better. And I think that they do follow through on that with the second, Final Fantasy 2. But for the intro to the series, the very first game of this epic series, it was a good start. And, for it being 1987 and, one of the first games on the console, it really did set the tone for what RPGs are now.
Mm-hmm. I know you could see yourself playing this for hours as a kid. I don't see myself giving it the patience.
Really?
Yeah.
I really could envision myself sitting down and just going through dungeons and constantly fighting enemies. And yeah, I could really see myself, pushing all the way through this game and getting every item and fighting every enemy and really, as I recall, when we were little, I would play like the original Mario over and over and over and over again. So I could see doing that kind of stuff with this game where I would sit and just fight the same enemies over and over and over again, getting to level, 99 or whatever the cap is in this game, and just like demolishing the boss. Not that it was that difficult at level 30, but...
Right? Yeah, that was... I gave this score a wimpy 4. I hated this game. This was...
Aww.
I'm so sad, and it makes me... I feel like a terrible person, but...
It's too bad. There was a lot of aspects to this game that I did not like, but overall, I didn't hate the game.
I did.
I know. I get it.
I text you in the middle of the night. I hate this game.
Yeah. It was a very difficult game, but it's over.
Yay!
And we did officially beat it. I honestly didn't think you were going to beat it, Kaylee. I didn't think you were going to get all the way through
either.
it.
In fact, I didn't even beat it yesterday. I had to beat it today, and I told you I'd have it beat yesterday.
I'm surprised that you actually made it all the way through. I thought for sure that I was going to end up doing this podcast and being like, well, I beat it, but you didn't. So I'm glad that you pushed through it and got it done. We did end up taking an extra month to beat it, but apparently we needed that full month. So,
well, if you're gonna play this game, play the PSP version.
Yes, the PSP version is the way to go. I don't know what the iOS Android version is like. It might be okay, but I definitely would prefer to play it on the PSP versus any other platform. If you have a PSP still, I swear the PSP is the best handheld game ever, or the best handheld system ever. The boss was stupid easy.
Yeah.
I wish that the boss was a little more epic. I loved that you could kill him when you did kill him. The whole rumbly screen that I was talking about earlier, that was cool. But otherwise, the boss was just.
On the other hand, the boss would have been good to be epically, like a big, strong boss if you could save before it.
That's true. But, I guess if you think about it, the boss was not just chaos. The boss was also all the 4 bosses before it.
I suppose.
So, because when you go through the final dungeon, you have to fight the 4 previous crystal bosses. So, you had to fight all those first, and then you get to Chaos.
And plus, they were encounter points, so you
could sit there and spam. Yeah, you could sit there and spam those spots over and over again and fight the same monster, which really sucked. I had that problem a lot. So, if you could get all the way through the dungeon and use exit to go back, and then start going through the dungeon again, you would have to encounter all those enemies over again. Which really sucked. And there was no running from them. All you could do was fight them.
I got away from a couple of them.
The bosses?
No, not the bosses. I'm sorry. I was talking about just random, encounter spots in front of treasure chests and stuff, which was also annoying.
Well, I don't think I could run from those either.
They were very tricky about this, too, because they would make it so that you would pass through an encounter, fight them, get your treasure chest, and then you'd have to pass through it again to get out of the, a dead end or whatever.
Yeah, I did have that problem.
Sneaky. So what did you give this out of your total score here?
Well, my total out of a possible 50 was, I'm pretty sure it's 36.
Mine was 19.5. It almost made it to 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad. What was the 0.5?
I think it was graphics.
Graphics. Oh.
I just like to put 0.5s in there.
Just to be unique. Let's recap here while I'm going over it. Story, I gave it a 6.
I gave it a 3.
Graphics, I gave an 8.
4.5.
Oh, there's your 0.5.
I just said it was graphics.
Oh, sorry. Gameplay, I gave it a 6.
I gave mine a 3.
Music, I gave a 9.
5.
And overall, I gave it a 7.
A lousy 4.
Yeah, so I should be 36. And you're 19.5. So yeah, 15.5 is or 55 point. I'm an idiot. 55.5 is our total. So that's
an F.
An F. That's actually lower than an F.
They failed.
This game has failed us. No, it was poor Kaylie.
Yeah.
If your score was just a little bit higher, we might have been able to get out of here, but no.
Hey, you had my character die several times.
Yeah, I know. I actually have it on display right here on our Zap Night table.
I didn't like how you had to name your own characters.
Yeah, I didn't like that either.
Default.
It's too bad.
It's too much pressure, Danny.
At least we had something to go by.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could have been better, but it wasn't awful for me.
Yeah.
So let's round of applause for Final Fantasy 1 beat.
Lame applause.
Our next time we're gonna play a Final Fantasy game, I think on our unofficial schedule, it's I want to say next June. Well, I mean, our next Final Fantasy in the main series is gonna be 15. So, and we're gonna start playing that when it comes out, though we're not gonna stream it. So, but Final Fantasy 2, specifically what I was trying to get out, is that Final Fantasy 2 is going to be sometime in June. So,
man,
we're actually going to be playing Final Fantasy 15 here pretty soon when it comes out. It's coming out next month. Now, I guess it is officially October 1st, so next month. Yeah, actually, this episode is going to be a day late, October 2nd, so I'm really sorry about that. But we did the best we could.
I beat the game. We should all be happy that I beat the game.
I know.
I haven't failed you yet.
So, what are we playing next?
We are playing Pokemon, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Pokemon Red and Blue.
I've been playing Pokemon
more than Final Fantasy.
Well, I haven't.
Not lately.
I haven't been feeling well, so when I lay in bed, that's what I do.
It's an easy go-to game before going to bed.
You know, when you're going, oh, and then you fight a boss or a fight for badges.
Gym.
Yeah.
Well, I'm playing Pokemon Blue. I'm streaming it on Twitch, so check it out there. You can find everything that we do at zapnight.com. But before we leave, let's talk about our Thrift Shop game. So today, I don't even have it sitting around here.
Jeep Thriller.
Jeep
Thrills.
Thrills, yes.
Something like that. Thriller. Thrills.
And I paid $1.99 for this game at a thrift shop. And it was a PlayStation 2 game. It came out in 2008.
Yeah.
And I think for 2008, it definitely could have been a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
Especially being a PlayStation 2 game. I think this game, had it been a PlayStation 1 game, would have been amazing. But being that it was a PlayStation 2 game, it was just very sad.
Although it's the first racing game that I felt comfortable using.
Really?
Yeah, I felt very... It must have been handicapped, because I suck at racing games. I always have. You've always beaten me.
You don't like Mario Kart or any of those?
No, I like those. I'm just saying, as far as, like, real cars go, like those types of racing games, I suck at those.
Oh.
Terribly.
Yeah.
And at this, I don't know, I felt like if Kid Me was playing, I'd be able to do this.
Well, I enjoyed playing it. I kind of liked the one-player version a little bit better than the multiplayer.
You just didn't like getting beat.
Well, that probably is true. It was more just having the full screen and having more than just one player to play against.
Pixels stretch.
Oh yeah, and they were beautiful full screen on my 50-inch TV. But the graphics could have been a lot better. The gameplay was meh.
You know, though, for what it was, I didn't hate it.
Yeah, I didn't either.
There was nothing, like, terrible about it.
I don't know if I could sit and try and unlock every single mode or every single game or car. But, I mean, overall, it was playable.
Yeah.
If only barely.
If I got this in, like, if I got a set of, like, so many games as a kid, I would have played this.
Yeah.
This would have been a game I would have played as a kid, I think.
I feel like I would have played any game as a kid.
Yeah.
It seems like we never really got many games, though we did. We had plenty of games, but it was just, I always liked having new games and just, like, spamming the crap out of them. Trying to beat them as best as I could. Try to unlock everything and, you know.
You just wanted, you always were so much better at me than everything, and I always struggled to keep up. But
yeah, just wait until we get Final Fantasy 9.
I'm gonna dominate.
You will. And I'm going to be like, I hated this game. It was so difficult.
Oh, Danny, you should see my strategy guide.
Oh, man. I don't even want to know.
I have Post-it notes everywhere. Which, to be fair, that strategy guide sucked.
I know. That one's, like, notorious for being the worst strategy guide ever.
It had, like, things wrong. My favorite part is... we're getting off topic, but I have to tell this story. In the game, in the strategy guide, they have a part where you're solely the female character, and she's labeled as the male character. So
well,
anyway.
we'll get into it when we play 9. You know, in 2020.
20.
So there's many more years of Zap Night ahead of us.
Yay! We have to make it to 9, you guys.
At least if we stop there, it's okay. So check out zapnight.com. You can see when we're playing on Twitch. You can
Facebook.
Pretty much everything that we're on. We do have Instagram.
Twitters.
I actually prefer to post pictures on Instagram over everything else.
I don't use Instagram. I like Teddygrams.
I use Instagram for Zap Night mostly just because it can push out to Twitter and Facebook at the same time. So it makes it easy.
Yeah, cross-posting.
Yep.
So yeah, check out, and I'm sure we have more links, some more information, and so you can find out more about us.
Send us an email. I would love to hear what you guys think about Final Fantasy 1. I would love to hear about your horrible experience. I would love to hear
horrible experience.
I would love to hear how wrong we are in our Final Fantasy 1 review.
You obviously weren't doing it right.
You guys suck. So yeah, send us hate mail, send us love mail. I don't really care. I'd like to hear from you. And also a huge announcement. I can't believe I forgot about this. We're officially on iTunes. Woo! Yeah, as of our last episode. So everything that we've done is on iTunes. You can find us, obviously, on our website. But yeah, iTunes, that's pretty awesome. So everybody who's listening on iTunes, welcome. Hi. I'm so happy you're with us. Come over to zapnight.com and check out everything we got and send us an email and say that you saw us on iTunes. And leave us a review. That would be awesome.
Do they really see us on iTunes?
No. No, they don't. But, well, they can see our banner. Anyway, Thanks for listening, and we will see you guys next month with our Pokemon review.
Yay.
Take care, guys.